everyone. So, I'm sure as many of you have seen, there's a new build absolutely sweeping Path of Exile by storm, and that build is Explode Totems Traps, using the Crucible Tree modifier. There's a bunch of people all looking at their own angles on how to make this build, and I'm going to show you today what my approach has been. As a disclaimer, I'm not a very good build maker. To be honest, I'm not anywhere near as experienced as many people who are kind of pioneering this build are. I've got about 4,000 hours in the game. But I think I've got some interesting ideas here that might be worth sharing. So, for a bit of backstory, I was originally playing an Impending Doom build and had no intention of playing this build whatsoever. In my Impending Doom build, I made a really great Cane of Kulamuk early in the league, all of the mods you'd want, and I spent a lot of time trying to get a good Crucible Tree on it. As a side note, don't do this. It sucks. It's miserable. Crucible Trees on unique items is awful. But what I did make during that, and from my massive graveyard of Canes of Kulamuk, there's more tabs of this, by the way, was this one. It's got the Totem Explode mod, and it has the slightly worse version of the Double Totem mod. I wish this was the better one, but I don't know if I want to try and gamble it. So, we'll see. We'll see where we go. So I got this, and I decided to make a build with it. Because I think this is a great weapon. I put the tree onto this weapon, and I'll explain my choices in this one specifically. It was on a garbage base before, and now it's on this one. I got a little bit lucky there. So, the Explode Totem mod, pretty simple. It makes your totems explode on death. The totems die when they expire, or when you summon too many totems, more totems than your maximum. The way you do this is by just summoning a ton of them. You throw traps, you throw multiple traps with multiple traps and cluster trap support, and each of them summons multiple totems. Now, as a bit of an aside, ideally I would not be using this multiple totem support. I would instead be using a charged trap support and be using this modifier in conjunction with the mastery here, skills that would summon a totem of a 30% chance to summon two instead. But I'm not doing that at the moment. This would require a fourth off color on the Cane of Kulamuk. It sucks to make. I don't feel like it right now. This is fine at the moment. There's definitely improvements for me to make here. And yeah, so there's no real way to actually affect the explosion itself. The explosion is secondary damage. Support gems don't affect it. Support gems instead affect the totem. At the moment, I'm using Rejuvenation Totem. I'm going to change it to Devouring Totem because it has much higher life. It also gains life from quality, and I'm using an Ashes of the Stars, so I can scale that quality quite high. But the Rejuvenation Totem's nice as well. The aura that the totem applies is very useful, and considering you're always going to have like one totem up when you're using the trap, it's nice to have. So, the first thing that you need to solve with a build like this is how are you going to scale the damage. There's a few ways to do it. You may have seen Scissorin doing poison. There's a fire conversion chieftain going around, and a lot of tricksters as well. I'm playing trickster. The way that I have chosen to scale my damage is by converting to cold using a veiled modifier gloves with an Eldritch implicit, and using the cold mastery here to convert fist to cold. I was originally going to do the triple conversion, converting to lightning, then converting to cold with 2 calls of the Brotherhood, to get more value out of this non-chaos is extra chaos damage modifier. But ultimately, the build restriction, like the gearing restriction that this imposes on you by not having rare rings, is too much, and I couldn't really justify doing it. This modifier is still giving a good amount of damage, but it's not as much as it would have been otherwise. Yeah, so then your cold damage, you gain cold as extra fire based on the effect of chill, or if they're frozen, because our hit is so high, the ailment threshold is also really high, so we're always going to be freezing or chilling stuff, so we're always going to be getting cold as extra fire. Heat Shiv is very powerful and very cheap still. The other modifiers we've got here, the best way to scale it is gem level. I've got a level 28 gem at the moment. You get +3 socketed supports from this modifier, and you get like a level 4 in power. They're not actually that expensive right now. This is about 5 divines. Not bad. Yeah, with this combined, you get a very high level totem. I got another one from Ashes because I think that was going to be the simplest way to scale it. And yeah, that's generally how you're going to scale the damage. I've also got generic chance to deal double damage on here as a modifier. In hindsight, I think the double damage while focus modifier, which is another thing that can roll on a Cane of Kulamuk, would have been better, because you don't really need the generic double damage while mapping. And having a button that would give it, it's like, 70% chance to deal double damage while focused because of the modifier magnitudes. That's a lot of damage. It would have been really nice for bossing, but, this is what I've got. So yeah, that's how we've done damage. Then you just do like minus rares from exposure. There's some of that on the tree. I don't even have it set up properly yet. I've got exposure from this mastery, and I will eventually have this elemental mastery on this wheel here to get 18%. There's some pen, there's some other stuff. I've got some curses. Only one right now. The second one will happen when I get some more levels. Yeah, that's generally what we're going for. The second problem that you need to solve is mana cost. This build has a ridiculously high mana cost. I've never seen anything like it. The cost multipliers on all of these gems are like 140% basically. It is crazy. This uses so much mana. So you need to solve that. A lot of the way that people have been doing this is with Slave Driver's Hand, which makes it cost life. But I obviously can't do that because the glove slot is being used for conversion. Instead, I'm using Eldritch Battery. Eldritch Battery, it's very easy. It's kind of like the second best option. And because we're a trickster, we can get our ES without having to invest too much in ES itself. From the Node Escape Artist, this gives you energy shield per evasion on body armor, and I have decent evasion on my body armor, nothing crazy. This gives me, plus the mods on my rings, well, 46 here, 44 here. This gives me enough to cast stuff very healthily. Another thing that Trickster gives us is generic ES Leech, which will keep our effective mana pool topped up. It's very difficult to get Leech on this secondary effect because it's not a spell. So something like, for example, Light Eater, the 0.8% of spell damage Leech to ES doesn't work. Because despite the fact that the totem has the spell tag, the explosion doesn't. So this is here for the Leech Mastery. But this is generic Leech, so this works. This will keep us topped up. It's great. Then another problem we have to solve, trap throwing speed. I think that we get enough from the trap support here with the regular quality and with the bonus quality from the Cane of Kulamuk and a little bit of trap throwing speed on the tree for it to feel comfortable. This is fine. It's not like super fast like an ice trapper would be for bossing, but it's fine. Again, other builds are using Slave Driver's Hand for this. It solves both of the problems at once, but we can't do that here. The next problem is general clunkiness from just traps to begin with. I hate the trap playstyle. I think it sucks. And it's just like kind of baked into the way that traps work. The fact that you have to throw a trap and then move and throw a trap, and it takes a while, it has to be triggered by the enemies and they can only trigger one at a time. It's just really painful to play. One of the really big benefits that we get as a shadow is the ability to use Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh combos to get Saboteur nodes. And the one we get is Chain Reaction. The skills used by traps have increased area effect. I don't know if this applies to the explosion. I don't think it does, but it's very hard to tell. But the valuable thing here is when your traps trigger, your nearby traps trigger. I cannot overstate how much quality of life this is. The big downside, though, is that this is very expensive right now. As of the time of recording, this is 20 divines to buy the Flesh Flame combo, 15 for the Flesh, and then between 5 and 6 for the Flame, depending on what the market is doing at whatever time. But I think ultimately it is worth it. So there we go, we've solved clunkiness. But that doesn't necessarily solve our clear speed. One of the benefits of using Ashes of the Stars is the ability to scale alternate quality effects on skill gems. There isn't much that really does anything going on here that I really care about, but one of the cool things we can do is use Divergent Herald of Ash. Divergent Herald of Ash gets increased AoE from its alt quality, so 50% with this perfect rolled ashes here. Again, it doesn't actually need to be this good, but this is what I got. I bought the worst one possible and chucked a couple of divines on it and got this. Very lucky of me. But we have that, Divergent Herald of Ash, and it's linked to an Ink AoE support. And while this does give a cost and reservation multiplier, we can fit it into the build easily because we have a lot of reservation efficiency. This, combined with the increased area of effect support at level 21, a better way to do this, especially if you have a lower quality Ashes of the Stars, is to use Awakened Ink AoE instead. But this is what I've used. This pushes me just past what I need. Again, combined with Presage as well, to make the radius of Herald of Ash go from 10 to 15, which feels fantastic. Because the base damage of the hits we're doing is so high, the overkill damage from Herald of Ash is just as high. It does tons and tons of damage, and really helps out the clear. Now, this isn't even the end game of the clear. What you can do is you can get an explodey chest, and I'll have a video linked in the description of what it looks like with an explodey chest. It's pretty shit explodey chest, to be honest, that I've got. It's in a sad state. I bricked my other useful mod and whatever. I'll work on this in a little bit, and I'll explain how you would upgrade to this. But the exploding chest, because it does physical damage, it's getting scaled by our non-chaos as extra chaos, by our conversion, by our heat shiver, that sort of thing. The damage is really high, it's causing explosions with Herald of Ash, and it's chaining. And it feels fantastic to play. It really fixes the clear completely. But even without that, the clear is still good. The clear feels great with just regular Herald of Ash with this much radius. So this, we scale into auras here. So our tree is stupid. This is a stupid tree because basically we want to grab Primal Manifestation because this wheel gives a lot of totem life, 60% total. And that is on the opposite side of the tree to where we start. Well, not exactly opposite, but pretty close. But one of the good things about this tree, though, is that we path past every useful aura cluster. We have Sovereignty here. We have Presage here for the Herald business that we're doing. We have Influence here. And we have Charisma here. All of these clusters give us a ton of reservation efficiency when combined also with Ashes of the Stars, and it allows us to really fit a lot of auras in. I was originally also testing with a Petrified Blood, but it turns out from the testing I did do, it didn't feel very good, so I didn't end up doing that. The auras we are using are Purity of Elements. This gives us elemental element immunity and allows us to have a much nicer time gearing for resistances. And this allows me to get capped Chaos Res because I can more easily put Chaos Res on my gear as opposed to elemental resistances. So now we're capped on all resistances. This is great. In this day and age in PoE, you kind of need to have capped Chaos Res or like high Chaos Res for mapping. Then we're using Grace as well because we are an evasion character. We can get a pretty high evasion rating. It's at 30,000. With a flask up, it becomes 42,000. So not many hits even get through to our hit pool. We're also, for Purity of Elements, we're using Leith Shade, so the ailment immunity is really nice. Then we're using an Enlighten here. This only needs to be level 3. We're at the point in reservation efficiency. We're getting more reservation efficiency, isn't doing much for us. And then we've got Hatred. Hatred is one of 2 auras that can actually scale the damage of the totem explosion if you're going for the elemental conversion route. It gives you Fizzes extra, and it gives you more cold damage. This is fantastic. I'll get this at level 21 eventually. It's all in a heat shiver with +2 aura gems because this costs like 30 chaos. Very, very cheap. AoE is the same. I might move it into the chest piece eventually to fix the colors. You may notice this is a 6 off-color chest piece, which is just stupid. It only needs to be 5, but I got 6 accidentally. And yeah, the other aura that scales the damage is Herald of Purity, because this is just more physical damage. One of the very few more multipliers that we can use here. So yeah, those are our auras. Together, I think this is probably the best setup for that, for this particular build. Now, I'm just going to... Right now, the damage is not very optimized. I need to have a Devouring Totem. I need to have Charge Traps, probably. I'm missing a lot of damage wheels. I'm missing a bunch of Masteries that would give us damage from Polymath. But I'm just going to show you... I haven't done any Ubers yet, actually, because I only just finished leveling this build not that long ago, level 88. I'll just show you, like, a random Writhing Invitation, because the damage is still there. The damage is absolutely still there.
You must win this one for me, my champion.
Foolish maven, come to feel me, a champion.
So there you go. He didn't even have any curses applied to him, and is gone. That's it. Once I get my second curse, and I can actually apply both Frostbite and Ellie Weakness with the Arcanist brand, that will be even more damage. They're getting levels and quality from Ashes, keep in mind. So this, if I had an alternate quality Frostbite, it would have increased effect. The Ellie Weakness does have increased effect, and if I had quality on that, it would even be better. So the amount of negative res this gives is really, really high. And again, I'm nowhere near the cap on the damage. Like, the damage is so easier with this build. The base damage is just too high. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Again, you'll be able to see what the clearing looks like in the video down below. I just don't want to make this too long. I've tried a few times to not make it too long and failed miserably. So yeah. Now let's look at defenses real quick. We've talked about evasion rating. Evasion actually feels pretty good as long as your base hit pool is high enough. A lot of my gear is focused on increasing that. It's very hard to get life around these parts of the tree. There's only a few little wheels you can get. Purity of Flesh, Cruel Preparation, and here we got Written in Blood. These kind of suck other than Cruel Preparation, so we need to get as much life as possible. Ideally, I would make these gloves better and get more life on that, but, you know. So we've got life and strength and life on this. This is not as good as it could be, but it's good. We've got life on this, we've got life on this. We want our life to be as high as possible, so our base hit pool is good. Then we've got... oh my god, I just had a stroke. We have our resistances, again, capped chaos res. So a hit pool for elemental damage is pretty high. The problem that we face is fizz damage. There's no way to shoehorn armor into this build, and even putting a determination in, I looked at it, it does not give me much fizz damage reduction, I'll tell you that. Because we have no increased armor anywhere. So what I've decided to do is go with converting the damage we take to elemental, and I'll build up to do more and more of this as we go. We've got conversion from Taste of Hate. This was just used from my Impending Doom build. We've got 12% from this, which is very nice. And then we've got a Watcher's Eye with damage taken as file affected by Purity of Elements. Ideally, you would want one with 2 damage taken as modifiers on it, both with Purity of Elements, but they're quite expensive at the moment, and I've kind of run out of money. I'll do that eventually. I've also got here, this was a Lethal Pride. I went into the Timeless Duel calculator, and I just kind of looked for fizz taken as fire. The best you can do is 2 modifiers. You can do 3 if you pick up Instability or Infused Flesh, but I have decided not to do that because I'm so passive starved. So I just got one with 2 fizz taken as fire, and then a life here. The totem placement speed doesn't matter. This costs like 50C. There were tons of them on the market for the different types. Really cheap. And I think it's worth it. It gives you strength on all these. Like, it's kind of nice. It will help you hit your requirements as well, because the requirements for attributes are pretty high. So yeah, we're taking a bunch as extra. Taking as like different elemental damage. Ideally, in the endgame, I would want a Explodey chest with the Crusader Explode mod, and the Redeemer, probably, cold, fizz taken as cold modifier. That goes up to 18%. So it's 6% more. And that would be nice. That would feel lovely. I'd go for the Redeemer because the other modifiers you can get from Redeemer Influence are quite good. Like, there's a suffix for effective auras, non-curse auras from your skills. That would kind of replace what we're losing from the Eldritch Implicits here. And yeah, so the other defensive is obviously Spell Suppression. It's an overpowered mechanic. We're in a part of the tree where we can actually pick it up. I've got Spell Suppression on these 3 pieces of gear. 12% here, 13% here, 19% here. We've got Spell Suppression from Instinct, this wheel. And then to cap it out, because I didn't want to pick up Spellbreaker, because this is basically... when we're using Eldritch Battery and not using Mind Over Matter, this sucks. This is like 20% spell suppression for 2 ascendancy points. So I've instead anointed Inveterate onto my ashes. And, ultimately I would rather not do this, but it's pretty good. Inveterate's here. It's kind of expensive. It does require a golden oil, but it's not the worst. Now what? Yeah. So, oh, another thing, gems. I've gone over the gems for this, I've gone over auras. We've just got a classic, like, cast when damage taken and mortal call setup with some more duration here. We've got a flame dash, because it's just easy to use. We've got our Arcanist brand with frostbite and ally weakness. I put on faster casting because I don't know what it is. This thing feels like kind of garbage. Actually, I don't need it, maybe. Maybe put like a frost bomb or something in there. Whatever. Something like that. I'm not... This is basically to say I am not quite sold on what I'm doing with the gems yet. I've also got a Vortex on mouse 1 with Unbound Ailments. Meaning that as I'm walking into packs when I'm clearing, I'm going to apply a very high chill effect thing to them and deal a ton of damage with Heat Shivers conversion when the traps explode. Ultimately, it's probably not necessary, but these are the colors I had. This is what I was working with. And yeah, that's pretty much that. I'm going to move to the PoB now to show you just, first of all, cluster jewels. Here we've got a cluster with Blanketed Snow for Pen, and Doriani's Lesson for LE damage leached as life. This does count. This is one of the only ways you can get leech in the build. This does actually leech successfully, so very nice. Then we have a Fettle cluster. These have kind of fallen out of favor recently. This is actually... I'll show you the one I'm using in-game. It's honestly about as good as this one. It's got Fettle and increased life, and... Sorry, Fettle and flat life. I bought this on the cheap without the elemental resistances roll. It cost me very little, like a divine maybe, I don't remember. And then I slammed on LE resistances, which was just kind of nice. That kind of shores me up against LE weakness. But these are really cheap right now. I desperately need life. It's so hard to get life on the tree here. And I want to be tanky, like the damage has been solved for this build, so you want to kind of get tank and you want to get other stuff. So here, I'll turn this off. You can see that my hit pool's pretty good. Fizz could be better, but you know, it is what it is. I have not put in the Lethal Pride, but I have a config for Fizz taken as fire to simulate me having that. This is with all of the points. The points are pretty important, I think. A lot of the masteries are really solid. So yeah, we've got a pretty good hit pool. It's not the greatest, but it is solid. It's a lot better than like a glass cannon kind of thing. Late game, I would like a Progenesis that will increase that hit pool even more. It will feel very good to play with. Yeah, that's that. Upgrades, you would want to get a better belt, like a belt like this one would be great. Stygian with more life, with some Chaos Res to free up Chaos Res on the chest piece, so you could go for the Awakener Orb one. That would be pretty nice. Just to show you the totem life, it's about 12,000 on a Devouring Totem. On a Rejuvenation Totem, it is 10,000. Other things, you can level this build really easily. You can just use a low level version of the thing with the mod. This can be used at level 5, but actually level 8 is the minimum requirement for trap. And it is the easiest leveling experience I've ever had in my life. I've never experienced anything that easy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If there's anything I missed, please let me know. I'm not very good at making videos, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments as well. And yeah, any suggestions as well, you know, go ahead. I'd love to hear. This is kind of just me showing you how I've approached this and approached solving the problems, and maybe you can use some of those in your own build instead of, you know, copying mine. All right, thanks for watching.